All right, members, I'd like to begin the meeting by call to order and a roll call, please.
Yes, sir. Dr. Beebe?
Present.
Dr. Beebe is present. Ms. Bofi?
Here.
Ms. Bofi is present. Ms. Bradford?
Here.
Ms. Bradford is present. Mr. Garvey?
Here.
Mr. Garvey is present. Mr. Gio?
Present.
Mr. Gio is present. Ms. Harris?
Here.
Ms. Harris is present. Ms. Hill?
Present.
Ms. Hill is present. Dr. Moranti?
Present.
Dr. Moranti is present. Ms. Orange Jones is not here yet. Mr. Romer?
Here.
Mr. Romer is present. Ms. Smith? Ms. Smith is present. You do have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Members and audience, we will start with the invocation, which will be given by Keith Leger of Stand for Children, and then we will follow that up by the Pledge of Allegiance by Veronica Brooks from the Louisiana Association of Public Charter Schools. If everyone would please stand. Thank you.
Heavenly Father, Heavenly Father, we pray that you will give us your gift of knowledge, that we may always make the best decisions for the good of all of the children in Louisiana. We pray that you give us the wisdom to know and define our tasks, the strength to build and refine our educational goals, and the courage to persevere as necessary. We ask for your direction that we might make unselfish decisions for those we serve. We pray that all who are assembled here have a safe journey home. We thank you for all your past and future blessings. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks to both of you for doing that. Next item is the approval of the agenda. If we can have a motion to approve the agenda. Motion by Mr. Garvey. Second by Ms. Bofi. Is there any objection to the agenda? Hearing none, so moved. Next item is approval of the minutes. May I have a motion for the approval of the minutes? There's a motion by Ms. Bofi, seconded by Mr. Garvey. Is there any objection or modification to the minutes as presented? Hearing none, so moved. I'd like to invite at this time the superintendent to please begin our meeting with some opening remarks.
Thank you, members. First, I want to thank all of you who came to the Believe and Prepare forum that we hosted earlier. It was extremely well attended by a very esteemed group, and I thought the panel did a fantastic job. We believe that that initiative, it's a long-term initiative because you're talking about primarily new teachers, but it could have a systemic effect on the future of the school system by professionalizing a lot of the work that goes on while teachers are still candidates. And we're extremely excited about it and about all the work that local school systems, colleges, preparation programs, and schools are doing. So thank you to those of you who attended. I also just want to make you aware that in the weeks to come there will be a set of announcements between now and the next BESE meeting regarding the results of the system from last year. Mainly, we will be able to end this year. We'll be announcing the high school graduation rate from last year. We'll be announcing the number of first-time freshmen in college across our state this year, and we'll be announcing the number of college courses that kids this year took. So there'll be a suite of announcements over the course of the next 3 to 4 weeks prior to the April 14 meeting, and want you to be aware of those. All indications are those will be very positive results, but obviously these kinds of things either validate or invalidate a lot of the things that we've been doing as a board and as an agency. So I hope that you will look forward to those announcements, and we'll make sure that you're briefed on them in advance of them going out. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I would invite any board member this morning if they would like to make comment about the superintendent's remarks or the meeting that they attended this morning. Certainly would welcome that. I want to personally thank the staff, your staff, and all those participants in the Believe program. I thought the presentation was excellent. I think we also need to recognize that if we really want our teacher preparation programs and our teachers to be the best, we have to obviously make that a priority in this state. So I appreciate the work that's being done. There's a lot of work yet remaining, and I look forward to doing it. Next item, please.
Yes, sir. 5.1, Academic Goals and Instructional Improvement Committee, Ms. Bradford.
On behalf of the Academic Goals and Instructional Committee, Improvement Committee, I move to approve motions 1 through 14, noting that items 9 through 14 are notices of intent.
Do we have a second? We have a second for that by Dr. Moranti. We do have some comment cards on this particular item, which I'm going to go ahead and invite those speakers to come forward. That would be Keith Leger, Stand for Children, Scott Richard from Louisiana School Board Association, and Stephanie DeSalle from Cable.
Good morning. My name is Keith Leger. I represent Stand for Children. I wanted to offer you all a sincere thank you for serving. It is unfortunate that you are subjected to personal attacks by some instead of civil discourse. Please know, though, that most of us truly appreciate your genuine commitment to making decisions that are in the best interest of children. The approval of Superintendent White's proposal of expediting the standards review process is a clear indication that both the Department of Education and you are in fact listening to the public and to educators. If in fact PARCC test data will be a factor in the standards review process, it's worth mentioning that those parents who are not allowing their children to take the test are essentially removing their children from that critical component of the review process. I would like to encourage both BESE and the Department of Education to explore a standards review process that will maintain or exceed the rigor and depth of the current standards. Thank you.
Appreciate your comments. I can't remember what order I called you in. Ms. DeSalle, why don't you go next?
Thank you very much, Board Member Stephanie DeSalle. Thank you again, Stephanie DeSalle with the Council for a Better Louisiana. I too would like to say thank you for your extraordinary service, which oftentimes is very difficult. Yesterday was a busy day. There were a lot of items. We may not have had a lot of time to comment, but on the opt-out approach, on the opt-out testing that you are taking is highly appropriate. This is not a time for reactionary type policy. You need facts. Oftentimes there's a lack of evidence and facts about things that are said. So I think once we know about what those numbers are, with thoughtful process and action, if there are any extraordinary circumstances, is the way to go. Secondly, on the accelerating the timeline on standards review, of course, technology allows us to expand the way we can approach this now. So I think taking your time, starting in the summer through till next summer, is a very good approach. I would say, and I know you intend to, but for those many of us who are not in the education system but outside looking in, we ask that you keep the goal of this review focused on, as Keith said, maintaining the rigor, the highest quality standards we can have for our children, because that's what we really want in Louisiana, as I know most of us do. So again, focus on evidence, substance, and content expertise around the actual knowledge and skills, which is what content standards are about. Lastly, on your move to add additional year to the transition phase in terms of accountability and consequences with regard to accountability, we wholeheartedly support that. That's a common sense measure for a lot of reasons. But I will say that it is going to also be important that we, in moving forward with our annual state tests, we're still going to know through this transition phase how well our kids are doing, how well they're being educated to these new standards by state, district, and school. We'll still have that information, and that's going to be some powerful information to have in the next year or two to decide where we're going. I think that's very good. Lastly, I want to close by saying that
You know, a lot of people can't be here because they work. A lot of the organizations I work with together, we all represent many, many, many thousands of parents, taxpayers, teachers, employers, and what have you. And a lot of them do appreciate your steadfast commitment to this shift to higher standards in Louisiana. And this shift has been so important. Maybe in the middle of all the rancor and rhetoric, it's hard to remember that this is needed in our state. Our entire system has to be lifted up, and that's what this whole entire effort has been about. I will just say that it's really important to say, Mr. Garvey, that we're not retreating. Louisiana is not abandoning this shift to higher standards. The hard work continues. I just don't want there to be any confusion out there, because in the midst of all that heated stuff yesterday, I think people who are listening online may get a little confused about the direction we're headed, and I hope no one thinks that we're not moving forward. You're really meeting your responsibilities in this state to not only lift our entire system, but you have a very...
I will ask you, because I'm going to ask others to wrap it up when you can.
This is
Thank
my
you.
last sentence, please. That you're to make decisions that benefit the greatest number of students. And that's where I think your focus has been and continues to be. It's not about just serving the kids that live in $300,000 homes. It's serving all kids, no matter what their backgrounds are. And we really appreciate it. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Mr. Richard.
Thank you, Mr. President. Scott Richard, Louisiana School Boards Association. Had no intentions of returning today, but however, after taking a moment to review the proposed master plan that the board is adopting and reading the commitment to providing statewide leadership, quality assistance to the systems and schools of Louisiana, and make recommendations for programs and procedures that are effective, efficient, and research-based. And after reading that master plan over and having a conversation with one of our school districts that are dealing with real issues on the ground, that being Calcasieu Parish, Ms. Bovee, and speaking to their superintendent this morning and listening to the conversations and reviewing the conversations we had yesterday, where the School Boards Association requested that BESE be good listeners, work towards alignment, and be proactive in addressing issues like opting out and the negative impact it has on school letter grades and district letter grades. I felt compelled to return today to provide you with some concrete information, some real evidence in regards to the numbers of opt-outs in Calcasieu Parish. Not hypothetical, Superintendent White, but real facts. In speaking to Superintendent Bruckhaus this morning, he relayed information to the School Boards Association that as of today he had 776 opt-outs that have been confirmed by parents' signature in Calcasieu Parish, mainly in one school zone, in the Sam Houston High school zone. That affects their feeder schools as well in the Moss Bluff area. 776 opt-outs, 318 in elementary, 458 in middle, 431 of those are in the Moss Bluff area schools. 5.8% of our total testers are opting out. That is a lot of zero scores. His request was that I appear here today and relay this information to BESE and to the state superintendent and ask you to reconsider your position on how this issue is being dealt with. I'm not here to create more controversy. We want to be a solutions-based organization as representing school boards across the state, those governance leaders that are closest to their constituents on the ground in the local school districts. So this is the reason why I've asked for some time with you this morning to relay these numbers to you and ask you to really reconsider on how this issue is being dealt with. This is not a hypothetical. This is real concrete numbers, and I would suggest that these be verified with the superintendent. If there's anything in question based on my testimony today, but more importantly, a sincere plea to you as the leaders of public education and in this state to give consideration to addressing this in a proactive manner rather than a reactive manner. Thank you.
Thank you. Sandra McDade and Brenda O'Brien.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, I'm sorry, Mr. Garvey.
Yeah, I had a question for Mr. Richard, if that's okay. Mr. Richard, I think I had heard that one of the school board members in Calcasieu Parish was encouraging parents to opt out. Have you heard that? Have you heard anything like that?
No, Mr. Garvey, I have not, and as I stated before, I wouldn't deal in a hypothetical situation like that. That's hearsay. I wouldn't think that that's a person's choice. We represent all school board members, and we have a framework of positions. I'm here to deliver issues and discuss issues with you that are concrete, not hypothetical.
You said it's hearsay?
I'm not an attorney, Mr. Garvey, and I don't want to engage in I'm not being interrogated today. I'm here as a representative of an association of local school board members that's bringing real-time issues to you. I can't answer a question about what an individual school board member purportedly said in the Calcasieu Parish.
I was asking what you had heard. Had you heard that a school board member was doing that?
Negative. No,
Thank
sir.
you.
Ms. Smith.
So, Mr. Richard, so did the superintendent contact you? How did?
I reached out to several superintendents this morning because another superintendent in rural North Louisiana made an inquiry to the School Boards Association about how are other districts handling inquiries from parents in regards to opt-out questions, and are there forms that local districts are utilizing to provide guidance and assistance to parents when they address the issue at the local level. I knew Calcasieu yesterday. In my testimony, I referenced a parish that we anticipated having a high number of opt-outs, and I reached out to a number of superintendents, asking them to please provide some sample forms that other superintendents could utilize to be proactive in addressing the issue. And when Superintendent Bruckhaus forwarded his forms to me in the form of an email, he also included these numbers. I immediately gave him a call and asked him, is this validated? And most certainly he said, yes, it's a very real issue in Calcasieu Parish. And I relayed information to him yesterday about the deliberations at BESE. And obviously, the media reported on it statewide. And I asked him, and he made the comment, I should have been at BESE, but I am working in my district to address these issues as well as a number of other issues. And we had the discussion about coming to BESE today and putting this information out to you as the governing authority of the state of Louisiana for public education. And that's where we are at the present.
Dr. Moranti and then Ms. Bophy.
Mr. Richard, I think yesterday our state superintendent did give direction. You know that's not our place as BESE to do that. But I think that Mr. White did give direction, and he stated it through policy and state statute. And if the superintendents used that, they would be encouraging their principals and their teachers and their parents to allow this process so that we could have some good data and good baseline. So I think we did provide that yesterday.
Yes, ma'am, and I understand, and this is not a debate about whether principals or school system leaders are encouraging or discouraging parents to take the test or to opt out of the test. This is about real-time numbers, and this is about the local relationships that local school leaders have with their customers, which are parents and students in their respective districts. And as you heard from local superintendents yesterday, there's a concerted effort to try to encourage kids and parents to take the test for the very same reasons you mentioned. But at the same time, local school boards, local superintendents, local principals, local teachers have to walk a very fine line in respecting parental rights when they request the option to opt out. And this is not the first time we've had this discussion. We were here at previous BESE meetings. And it kind of brings it full circle, Dr. Moranti, as to why in past BESE meetings and in past dialogue, past Superintendent Advisory Council meetings, we've asked for a proactive, uniform process for all districts to have on how to address the issue. Now districts are out there on their own dealing with this issue at the local level. And in the dialogue we had yesterday and the motions that were presented to the board,
Mr. Richard, I appreciate your comments. If we could wrap it up, we had 6 hours of this
Yes,
discussion
sir.
yesterday, and I appreciate your testimony today. You
I'd
felt
just like
compelled
to
bring
say
it, and I
it's
appreciate
real-time
that.
issues.
Thank you. Ms. Bophy.
Yeah, I think that the school and performance score piece is really important, but the information that Mr. Richard is bringing to us today has an impact, I believe, when it comes to federal funding. So I'm interested in hearing from the superintendent because what Mr. Garvey brings up, I think, although I'm not an attorney, is more than hearsay in terms of leadership at the local level being involved to some degree in pushing an opt-out movement. And I'm curious about how that would impact those schools and whether or not it's related to those specific schools or it becomes a district issue or if it becomes a state issue. So I know that's not exactly what Mr. Richard's bringing to us, but I think that what he's talking about brings other things into the conversation that we need to consider. And I think people at the local level need to understand what they're putting at risk.
I'm going to just urge that we, in spite of Scott, you're trying to play with my words a little bit. In spite of this being a hypothetical, I think things are hypothetical until they happen. And a test taker or a not test taker does not happen until the test is taken. So the test will be taken. Now, as it happens, Scott, I've been in contact with the staff in Calcasieu Parish, and I've talked to Mr. Brookhouse too. In Representative Guyman's hometown, Moss Bluff and Gillis are two schools where there are no doubt there are higher rates of opt-out in those schools. That's okay to say that. I think we can project that that's going to happen. We don't just govern two schools. We govern 1,400 schools. 1,000 schools are taking the PARCC test. 2 out of 1,000 is 0.2%. So we're not going to make statewide policy based on something that we are in conversation about at 2 schools out of 1,000. We're going to look at the results of all 1,000, and we're going to make responsible policy then. I think the one thing we can do is assure the folks of Moss Bluff, the Calcasieu Parish School Board, Mr. Brookhouse, that we are going to work with them and be in dialogue with them and seek to not disrespect them in any way. But let's wait until the results come back. Let's make a responsible decision looking at all 1,000 kids, schools, looking at 300,000 kids who are going to take the test, and let's move from there. That's not meant to disrespect Mr. Brookhouse's concerns or the concerns of the parents in Moss Bluff or Calcasieu Parish or anywhere else. Let's just wait until we have the numbers, and then we'll have this conversation.
Thank you. Either of you can begin if you just introduce yourself, please. For the. I don't know. Try it again.
There we go. Okay, thank you for coaching me on that. You're a good teacher. Okay, I want to invite all of you to change your mind except the mighty 4. Dr. Beebe, Jane Smith, Carolyn Hill, Mary Harris. Thank you. You're true leaders on this board who really have considered serving kids. I came before this board last year, and I looked at all of you, and it's interesting. Every one of you who voted the way you voted yesterday, you haven't changed a bit. You voted that same way last year. That's unusual. Usually when you have a board and you have something that impacts this many students, you've got at least one person that changes their mind. None of you did that. We just left a meeting, and I think most of you were in that meeting, and the cry in that meeting was, we have teachers that are leaving. We don't have enough teachers. And I was in the back of the room wanting to say, you know, if you dropped Common Core and Part Test, you'd have plenty of teachers. I know you people are capable. I want to invite you to change your mind today. It's okay. When you realize you've made a mistake, someone said yesterday, this is too chaotic, or it's going to be too chaotic if we don't go forward. What do you think this is now? So if you stay stuck in the rut, you've got your heels dug in, if you stay that way, you have a punitive plan only for those who opt out. What are you going to do if you have thousands of kids opt out? I sent all of you an email Tuesday about the thousands of kids that walked out in New Mexico. This is reality. It's going on all across the United States. Read your emails I send you, please. What is your plan if you have thousands of kids opt out? This is your opportunity today to appear to be planners who plan for whatever happens. You're going to give kids zeros if they opt out. What is your plan for those who don't? Your plan is punitive. You're cracking a whip. You remind me of that song, Rawhide. Head 'em up, cut 'em in, cut 'em out. That's punitive. Teaching at one time was fun. Learning was fun. You people sitting on this board who represent education in the state of Louisiana, what has happened to most of you? I plead with you today to put the fun back in education. Let the teachers do their jobs. Let the parents have their say. Let education go back to the local the way it started, and that's where our greatness was. That's all I have to say.
I appreciate your comments, Ms. McDade.
I don't know how much I could add to that because she's essentially said it all. 700 is pretty close to 1,000. And I think that by the time these tests are presented, you're going to find thousands of parents who have really thought this out and said, no, I don't want my child participating in this. I don't want my child taking this test. I don't want my child being a subject for somebody's statistic. My child is in school to learn, not to be tested and tested. When I went to the Caddo Parish School Board on this issue, one of the things the teachers were furious about was they were going to lose days, not hours, but days of instructional time. To do what? To test children. Well, wait a minute. Is that going to give them a grade? Are they going to learn anything during these days that these children are being tested? No. Those are not. Those are normally instruction days. They're not going to be. And somebody said, well, you know, we encourage them to take the ACT, the SAT, the Iowa. Yeah, we do, on Saturday. We don't encourage them to take them during instructional time. This, Mr. White, is taking away from the teachers instructional time that they, quite frankly, can't afford to lose. When my children were in school, one of the cries I heard from the teachers were, parents are not involved. Parents are not finding out what's going on. Parents are not doing anything. Well, today, folks, parents are involved, more so in some districts than others right now. And I think those of you who are elected in those districts need to realize that you were elected to represent those parents. Those parents were here yesterday in droves, and you guys elected to ignore what they had to say. Folks, they will say something else, but it will be at the ballot box. That's where their next words will come. I think those of you who serve at the pleasure of the people had better think about that. Now, those of you who serve at the pleasure of the governor, you have a little more leeway. But the rest of you serve at my pleasure and other voters' pleasure. And I think it was clear yesterday that parents are going to get the information, and when they get the information, they're going to opt out, and they are going to hold you accountable for the fact that a little girl in Shreveport was literally called names by her teacher because her mother opted out. She was called stupid. She was told she was a quitter because her parents opted her out. And those of you who voted no yesterday on Ms. Smith's...
that point real quick. You know, nobody on this board condones what that teacher may or may not have done. Not one person up here, whether they voted one way or the other yesterday. Okay, so my message to that parent was, I certainly apologize on behalf of that teacher. And that teacher should be dealt with that principal in that district. That has nothing to do with a single member on this board. Now, we obviously, some of us disagree on this particular issue. But don't try to say that because that teacher made a bad decision, it's because of something that we've done. That's not true.
Other teachers will be free to make that decision, Mr. Romer, because of your vote yesterday. You voted for no punitive damages on the school systems, no punitive damages on the schools, and quite frankly, on the teachers. They can do as they please when someone comes in.
There's no punitive damage to the student either in the way we've set this up. So let's make sure we get the facts here, okay?
I think the facts are clear, Mr. Romer.
I appreciate your testimony.
That wasn't hyperbole. That's already happened, and other students are getting the same thing. That wasn't something that was out there by itself.
I appreciate
that. Was a serious situation, and that little girl, imagine yourself 13 years old and your teacher has said, you're stupid, you're a quitter. When you go home, what you're going to say to yourself? I guess I'm stupid. I guess I'm a quitter. Because my parents made a thoughtful decision, a decision the legislature gave them the right to do. As Ms. Smith said, it's not your decision. It is not your decision whether or not these children take the test. It is their parents' decision. And it is your job to make it doable for those parents to make that decision. It is not your job to leave it wide open for those children to be treated the way that little girl was treated. I wholeheartedly disagree with you, Mr. Romer.
Nobody condones that.
But I appreciate the opportunity to say that. Thank you.
All right. There are no more comment cards on this item. There's a motion and there's a second.
Mr. Romer, and I don't want to beat a dead horse.
Oh, I'm sorry, Dr. Beebe.
But, you know, some comments were made today, and I don't think anyone in Louisiana objects to high standards, rigorous standards. And again, as I've said in the past repeatedly, that the opposition comes when there are the uncertainties with regard to the testing. You know, we don't even know the number of students opting out. I mean, we have one school system with the numbers that Mr. Scott Richard revealed. I do know as a BESE representative for District 3, I received 5 resolutions from BESE District 3. Superintendents and school boards asked me to address the parents' right to opt out their students, and I think you know, when Ms. Jane Smith brought forth her motion, that's what we're doing. We're not trying to circumvent accountability. We are addressing the concerns of our constituents as we are elected to do, and in some cases appointed to address. And I'm on record, I think it was in January, I was interviewed by a local television station regarding pork testing, and there was a lot of uncertainty with pork, and I think that's where the pushback is. Are we actually taking the pork test? We talk about Pearson Pork, and we're with Data Recognition Corporation, so there is a lot of uncertainty. Parents have taken the initiative to educate themselves. I know we often revert back to the past, but you know, maybe the parents weren't as involved in the past, but they're now reading, researching. They see what the research says, and parents, regardless of what we feel, believe, think, they are in control because these are their children. And if they become dissatisfied with the traditional public schools, they have options. They know what their choices are. And I will say again that many parents throughout Louisiana are very satisfied with their community schools. And they're standing up today, not because they oppose rigorous standards, they are standing up for their community schools. And so I, as a BESE representative, and the other BESE representatives who have voted with me, we're here to ask, we have appealed to this board, we have appealed to Superintendent John White to be proactive, to make decisions, to give guidance to our district superintendents. I've had some call me as a BESE representative wanting me to give them definitive direction. I could only share with them what I'm doing in St. Martin Parish, and I don't even know that that's legal, accurate, or what have you, but I'm doing it based on what I believe to be a responsible thing to do. I can read policy, I can implement according to policy, but at the end of the day, I think we need to be proactive rather than reactive, because we risk losing thousands of children to homeschool or to other entities. And I believe in traditional public schools. I support traditional public schools by having my grandchildren enrolled. I had my children and grandchildren enrolled in public schools. I'm not opposed to choice. But again, we are not being fair and equitable to all choice options.
Thank you for your comments, Dr. Beebe. We have a motion on the floor and a second. Is there objection to the motion? Hearing none, next item.
Next item is 5.2, Administration and Finance Committee. Mr. Guillot.
On behalf of the Administration and Finance Committee, I move to approve motions 1 through 24, noting that motion 23 is a notice of intent.
We have a motion. Is there a second for that motion?
Second. And I'd like to note on motion 6 that I oppose motion 6.20.
Okay. So I believe Ms. Bophy second, or Ms. Bradford did the second.
Yes.
Ms. Hill, you'd like to be noted as opposing on, did we get the item that she wanted?
Yes.
Is there any other objection to that item? Hearing none, so moved. Next item.
Next item is 5.3, Committee of the Whole RSD Matters Only for Administration and Finance Committee. Ms. Hill.
On behalf of the Committee of the Whole Administration and Finance Committee, I move to approve motions 1 through 9.
We have a motion to approve items 1 through 9, a second by Ms. Bradford. Is there any objection? Hearing none, so moved. Next item.
Next item, 5.4, Committee of the Whole RSD Matters Only, School Innovation and Turnaround Committee. Ms. Hill.
On behalf of the Committee of the Whole School Innovation and Turnaround Committee, I move to approve motion 1.
There's a motion for approval of item 1, seconded by Ms. Bradford. Is there any objection? Hearing none, so moved. Next item.
Next item is 5.5, Educator Effectiveness Committee. Ms. Bophy.
On behalf of the Educator Effectiveness Committee, I move to approve motions 1 through 2 and 4 through 6, noting that motion 2 is a notice of intent and noting that motion 3 is a read item in order to put forth the final revised motion and policy that was amended in the Educator Effectiveness Committee, which is being provided to BESE members now.
So there's a motion and there is to clarify what just happened, item 3, if you remember yesterday, was the item we voted on that had to do with some modifications within the Compass program. We referred 3 items back to the commission. We needed to make sure that language was accurate today, and so that item is at your desk now. If you have a question regarding that, now is the time to ask that question. So we'll first go, while you review that, let's go ahead and approve the other items.
We need a second.
We need a second first on the motion. Second by Mr. Garvey. Let's approve items other than item number 3. Is there any objection to approving the other items? Hearing no objection, they're approved. Item 3, does anyone have a question regarding the language as presented?
So Chaz, maybe just to look, I mean, this is the handout right here?
Yes, it is.
And essentially, you removed the section that has been referred back, correct? Okay.
Yes, sir. Section 105 was removed.
And what about the other one that was questioned in 3, was it 305D or something like that?
It was also removed.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on that item? So is there a motion then to approve item 3? Is that motion made by Mr. Gio, seconded by Ms. Bradford? Any objection? Hearing none, so moved. Next item.
Next item, 5.6, School Innovation and Turnaround Committee, Mr. Garvey.
Yes, on behalf of the School Innovation and Turnaround Committee, I move approval of motions 1 through 6, noting that motion 6 is a notice of intent.
There's a motion. Is there a second for that motion? There's a second by Mr. Gio. Are there any questions on that motion? Any objection on that motion? Hearing none, so moved. Next item.
Next item is 6.1, Non-Public School Council Report. Receipt. We need a motion to receive.
We need a motion to receive this. Motion by Dr. Moraney, second by Mrs. Smith. Any question on this item? Any objection? Hearing none, so moved. Next item.
And next item, 6.2, Superintendent's Advisory Council. We need a motion to receive the report.
Motion by Ms. Smith, second by Ms. Bradford. Are there any questions on item 6.2? Any objection to receiving the item? Hearing none, so moved. Is that it?
That's it.
That concludes our business. Oh, yes, Ms. Smith, before we adjourn.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I just want to say that we had a long day yesterday and heard a lot of testimony. And we had a record vote on the motion that I made. And so if I had felt that there would have been a change on this board, I would have reissued that motion. But I really feel like, in respect to all the board members and the long debate that we had yesterday, we had a record vote. It did not pass. So I understand that, but I wanted you to know that I did, out of respect to the rest of the colleagues, if I had felt that there would have been any difference, I would have brought that motion back.
Any other comment? Appreciate your comments, Ms. Smith. We are adjourned. Thank you.